Prashant is an unmarried guy working in a corporate enterprise. He works hard to satisfy his needs and support his parents. He has worked in the industry for 5 years just after graduation from college. When the industry proposed new rules and regulations on work, people working in the industry started hating it. As days passed, people truly started hating the industry and decided to protest against the corporate, as it favored the industry more and left the people behind. People gathered in front of the industry with banners and slogans. Prashant was also part of the protest, hoping for some change in the industry. People gathered at the decided location and time. The head of the protest had a megaphone in his hand and started creating slogans to push up their voices. As time passed, more people joined the protest. As the industry was in the middle of the city, it quickly gained the attention of tons of people in the locality. Soon the news was widespread in local and state media. It caught the attention of law enforcement of the city. They quickly gathered around the industry to prevent people from further joining and creating havoc in the middle of the city. The law enforcement people tried their best to control the crowd but failed. The higher officials of law enforcement were given orders to use non-lethal weapons to control the growing crowd. Batons and whips are the basic non-lethal weapons used to detain protesters. Since 1980, law enforcement officials have also used pepper spray, stun grenades, tear gas, rubber bullets, and electric traces. In some large protest and riots, armored fighting vehicles and water cannons are used. Here, to understand the user more, we shall divide the demographics of people where crowd control is commonly practiced. According to reports, protests rose by 55% in India from 2009 to 2014, and little states led the charge. In all, there were 420,000 protests over the last 5 years, 148% student-led agitations. Karnataka reported the most student protests. Tamil Nadu, Punjab, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra together account for 50% plus of all protests except for Madhya Pradesh. All other states have literacy rates higher than the national average. The increase was mainly driven by Tamil Nadu and Punjab, which between them registered nearly half the increase in protests nationwide. Unrest grew around the nation for varied reasons: communal, government employee grievances, political and labor. The less empowered are less likely to agitate. Underdeveloped states such as Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, with 25% of India's population, collectively accounted for less than 1% of agitations during 2009 to 2014. These states have literacy rates much below the national average. The outliners and why they seem quiet. Kerala, Goa, Himachal Pradesh and the northeastern states defy the link between protest and literacy. In Kerala, the High Court imposed a ban on buns, as protests are called colloquially, in 1997, which could also be one reason why protest numbers remain relatively low. Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu together accounted for more than 60% of the political agitations held across India in 6 years. Crowd control across states. While 48% of 3,929 protests in Jammu and Kashmir were quelled by forces, less than 0.1% of 109,548 demonstrations in Tamil Nadu. Up to 45% of protests attracted police in Jammu. According to reports of the Bureau of Police Research and Development, from the stats, we can understand that the crowd control devices are law enforcement officials. They have direct contact with the public and have the authority to control and manage the outbreak of crowd crushes or riots. From the reports, we can infer that police casualties due to the riotous mob are higher than civilian casualties due to police action. 1,756 policemen were injured, while 529 civilians were injured during the year 2008. Thus, the product that we develop should also reduce the casualty of law enforcement officials as well as the casualties of civilians.
Next, we will look at the perspective of rights of civilians and the law enforcement officials. Article 19 grants citizens the freedom to assemble peacefully without arms. The right is subjected to condition of life, sovereignty and integrity is not compromised. The state relation with neighboring countries is not at stake. The state security is not affected and public order is not disturbed. Before organizing a public assembly, prior information related to the time, location and nature of the assembly must be given to the police. How are the police supposed to control crowd and deal with violent protest? The Bureau of Police Research and Development published a handbook on crowd control, which talks in detail about dealing with violence in public protest and unlawful assembly. First, psychological methods include persuasive appeals, humorous remarks, confident police attitude, making the crowd wait for unexpected distractions. However, the usage of such methods should be such that it doesn't induce panic in the crowd. Second, the handbook further suggests that if psychological methods of persuasion, warning, and advice does not work and the use of force is unavoidable, the police should use the minimum possible force so the damage to life and property is least. No force should be used more than necessary. It should not be used as punitive measures. It should be ceased immediately once the objective has been attained. Third, before using force, the police have to give a warning to the assembly that force will be used to disperse them. If the crowd refuses, then the police can resort to force for dispersal. There should be there should be always be an armed contingent accompanying the police along with the personnel who have lathis and tear gas. Plastic pellet firings can be also used when lathi charge doesn't suffice. Again, care should be taken so that only recovered damage is done to the human body. Fifth, only if all other options have failed, in extreme situations, police can use firearms. Proper warnings have to be given to the crowd. The most threatening part of the crowd is to be targeted and aim should be kept at the legs to avoid severe injuries. Those injuries should be given first aid and sent to hospital immediately. Under section 131, if the situation goes out of hand, the police can seek the help of armed forces. Sixth, all law enforcement agencies also have the right to private slash self-defense under IPC just like ordinary people for protecting life and property. Further, a section 132 of CRPC protects police and armed forces from prosecution for using force as mentioned earlier. Crowd control management is a part of training syllabus for constables, sub-inspectors and deputy superintendent of police. For IPS officers, crowd management training is imparted during their basic training course. From the handbook of crowd control procedure, we can infer that the law of enforcement officials must take the utmost care to safeguard civilians under any circumstances. Yet, though the death toll continues to increase due to the treatment of law enforcement officials on civilians, this narrow gap of death of police and civilians can be reduced with the usage of non-contact devices like acoustic devices to scatter and disturb the agitators. This would help to bring down the death on both sides. People like Prashant fight for a valid cause, and the government should never fail to satisfy the needs of the individual and respect the grievances of the people at any cost. Let 100 guilty be acquitted, but one innocent should not be convicted, said by Benjamin Franklin. Thus, this concludes the understanding of the needs of customer, that is, the law enforcement officials, and the receiver, the agitators.